their way back to their car all on in a wheelchair. So it offers something for everybody, and that is something that the state of Pennsylvania will be looking for. They look for, accessibility in their designs and future plans. So that was one thing that we had proposed for that one lot in Honey Brook Township. And the next few slides are just showing some images of what that park might look like. And I know most of it's in West Brandywine, but I think it gives you the flavor of what West Brandywine is envisioning. And the east end in West Brandywine really, I think, will become the major trailhead for the Icedale Trail. It'll be a much larger parking lot. There will be more facilities offered there. So there will be parking, picnic areas, there will be interpretive signage. And so I think the majority of people who drive here to use the trail will access the trail from the east end. The west end of the trail in Honey Brook Township is more a secondary trailhead for 10 vehicles and with no facilities. Maybe some, directional signage and a map showing where the trail goes, but the facilities will be minimal. So, so you can read a little bit more about specifically what's proposed on the preserve and maintenance study. So, in terms of next steps, the study recommends first that the townships, mostly Honey Brook Township, move forward with securing lease agreements with property owners. And this would have to be negotiated with your solicitor and in coordination with the landowners and the Trails Committee, possibly. And once the lease agreements, or even the trail easement, which is more permanent, is in place, then the township could move forward with pursuing funding for design and engineering. And realistically, I think from concept to reality, a lot of trails take in the neighborhood of 10 years to go from an idea on paper to actually people using the trail. So it's a long process that will take commitment, and that's hopefully where the volunteers on your trail committee can help to keep moving this project forward. And the Brandywine Conservancy will always be there as well to help provide technical assistance, writing grant proposals, and even helping seek funding for design, engineering, and implementation. But the Icedale Meadows Preserve, I think, in West Brandywine Township, their intention is to move that along at a little quicker pace because they already have control of the property. And so they can move forward with improvements as long as they coordinate with Pennsylvania Fish and Boat. So that's all I have for this evening, and I would be more than happy to address any questions or comments.
The funding for the study, that was done entirely by grant, or was that done by the townships?
Yes, thank you. So that was done by, the total cost of the study was $25,250. The county is contributing $16,450, which is a little over 65% of the project cost. The region, which includes Honey Brook and West Brandywine Township, are contributing $6,300. So that would be split between the two municipalities. So Honey Brook then would be paying $3,150. And then Pico Green Region is paying $2,500, and that is coming from West Brandywine Township. They have a Pico Green Region grant that they're contributing towards this project.
There was a question I raised on the law enforcement for any type of patrol line for this area, if West Brandywine would be providing that. There was a question of the availability of vehicle that could accommodate that. Was that ever decided, or is that still outstanding?
That was an idea that was put forth by the study committee. In fact, John Castles was
Was, yeah.
suggested that
Yeah.
as an idea, but it has never gone before the board or their.
And he's no longer on the board.
I know. Yeah, so it's definitely an idea that will have to be vetted and pursued, but it's a possible option.
Yeah.
Yeah, and another option, I guess the state police would be called if there were an issue on the trail. I think another means of monitoring activity on the trail is if there were, some kind of a volunteer workforce, not to confront people or challenge people about, misuse of the trail, but more just eyes and ears to keep track of, what's happening on the trail and to report back to the township what they're seeing.
It would be a cost that we would have to incur for some cleanups on our area of this trail.
Yes, and so that's at the discretion of the township, whether, do you have a public works
We
department?
do, yes.
Whether that would be your public works department, or whether that would be contracted out to a third party, someone who would come in once a week to collect trash or,
Yeah.
drive.
When I say public works, actually it's a road crew that
Okay,
assumes that responsibility. Yeah.
okay. Yeah, I wasn't sure what your resources were, so that would be something you'd have to discuss internally.
Good. Thank you.
Can we follow up with any questions? Yeah, I just want to, Valerie Schultz, I'm in Honey Brook Township. I will tell you, I have used the trail around Living God Lutheran Church all throughout COVID because Chester County shut down a number of the parks. So that's the only way I got some fresh air. And I will tell you right now, there's a lot of illegal activity that goes on around that area. There's a lot of drug use that happens there. I used to go early in the morning before work, and I saw people smoking various things and doing various drugs, not only in the parking lot, but down further in the trail. The only way that I felt comfortable is I had my 2 German Shepherd dogs with me. So, but I will tell you that's a huge concern. You will have to secure some type of law enforcement patrol for that area, and asking the state police to do that isn't going to happen because right now as it stands, various residents have had break-ins. They've called the police and they said, we don't have the manpower, let them go, let them do whatever, we can't do anything about it. So that's not going to be acceptable. It's going to be a huge risk for public safety if we don't have some sort of police, patrol in that area. My other question is, where is the parking area going to be near Living God? Is that going to be across the street, or is that going to be in the field, the farmer's field there? I wasn't quite certain from your map.
Yeah, it's in the farmer's field, basically. There's sort of a farm lane that comes in on 22, and there's row crops, just to the west of that farm lane. So there's a small wedge of land, just west of that farm lane, that's owned by Chester County.
Okay.
And so it's wide enough to do 10 cars parking, perpendicular parking to that laneway.
Okay.
So it would be a small parking lot.
And I thought we had talked about, does this trail go anywhere near the Foxbrook development? This is on the other side of 322, right?
Right.
Yeah, so this doesn't go over into our area. Okay. Yeah, that's all I would say. I think you really have to consider very seriously the safety aspect of this trail because it's a very secluded area, and already there's a lot of crime that goes on there that the state police just can't handle. So.
Well, thank you, that's interesting, and I think, the good thing is, once these parking lots become better used and more popular and more people use them, and there are more people on the trail, that will discourage some of that inappropriate use of the trail to some extent, just by having more eyes and ears on the trail. And that's been the experience from other trail projects.
My name is Jay Arndt. I live at 95 Lakeview Drive, Elmerson, PA. I'm the church council president of Living God Lutheran Church. One of the concerns we have is about the parking they're proposing. We're concerned that as this becomes more popular, more people will be using it, and the wind-up using our parking lot, which is right there, they can't miss it. So we would like it if consideration be given to increasing that, and I have a letter I can share with the member, and I shared it with Sheila, so thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Karen Forrest. I live at 287 Bushy Pike. Valerie already mentioned about the Living God Church. I did that as well, doing that as well. Some things I have about discussion is the Americans with Disabilities Act. You said that they could have their wheelchair stopped and walk the trail and go onto the bridge. There's many people that are wheelchair bound and can't get that way. And a stone dust trail, I can't, I'm a nurse. I take my clients out on different trails, and I can't push a wheelchair on a stone dust trail, you know. And I think everybody, whether it be you, I, or someone with a disability that's in a wheelchair, should have the right to go through the whole trail. Secondly, have you discussed the option about, you know, parking lights in the, where you're going to park at? Because sometimes, you know, in the wintertime it gets darker sooner, but yet somebody might be getting home from work and having some frustration and just want to take a walk on the trail. I mean, I would consider like parking lot, lights in the parking lot, and maybe even lights along the trail so people know, you know, that you're not wandering off and going somewhere else. And then Valerie already mentioned about the Living God Church. Okay, that's it for me. Thank you.
Great, thank you. So, parking lot.
Yeah, what's that wire there?
That's the second time. I'm going to pull over the net.
Your best management practice would be to have this there.
Thank you for the comments about ADA accessibility, and that's certainly something that the township will need to consider when they go into detailed design. If the stone dust surface is constructed properly, it should be ADA accessible if it's compacted and if they use the right material. But again, that's something that, you know, maybe when the time comes, the board can go see different trails and a couple of trail surfaces and make a decision with the community at the time. And with regards to the lighting in the parking lot, we just didn't get to that level of detail. But the next step in the process is for the township to do design and engineering for that parking lot. So that's when they, hopefully in concert with Honey Brook Township, would decide on, you know, whether lighting was required. I kind of assumed, and I could be wrong, that the trail would be closed after dark. So lighting on the trail wouldn't necessarily be appropriate if the trail is closed. So,
But you can still sneak in there.
yeah, it's easier if it's lit. That wasn't envisioned, but again, that is a perfect topic for when you get into detailed design.
Well, you can always do like solar lights. You know, you don't have to have any wiring, just let the sun do it and light them up, you know? But, yeah, I agree. I mean, nobody should be doing that after dark.
Yeah.
Sometimes I work late and I am so frustrated with, oh, I know that, it's not safe after the Literature Scott episode. You know, would you put like maybe a chain up or something up, like a gate? Would that be something to consider?
Yes, and that would all be considered during the design process, the next.
Oh, great, great.
Absolutely. And same with issues concerning privacy for adjacent landowners, you know, whether fences should go up or landscape buffers, that should all be considered during the design stage.
Thank you.
Could I ask a question on that? So the question before us, to accept the ideal trail feasibility study plan, so what does that entail?
All it is in much the same way as you accept the draft minutes of meetings.
There's no commitment.
There's no commitment, it's
Yeah, I
simply
think
saying we have
that's-
received the plan.
Yeah.
I believe there's a gentleman who wishes.
Yes.
Dan Lindley, 4,000 Tree Line Drive. I can appreciate how complicated putting a trail in, although it sounds so simplistic, can be. 5 or 6 years ago, there was a meeting here at the township building about extending the Struble Trail up through Honey Brook Township. And at that time, the Amish community had requested to either use it as a horse path or a horse and buggy path. My question is, has the community, the Amish community, had any input into your plan? And what was that outcome? Because their argument at the time was that asphalt wasn't good for their horses, and certainly not good for asphalt, as we all know, on Honey Brook roads. But they also wanted to be able to use, just like anybody else was going to use it, more to traverse back and forth between farms. Now, this is a different situation as far as Struble Trail, where that, I think it was 5 or 6 miles of trail, where yours sounds like it's about 2. So my question is, there any consideration of our Amish community?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that was a conversation early in the process of the advisory committee, and we did reach out as well. In addition to the advisory committee, we reached out by mail to all the adjacent landowners and specifically asked them to provide some feedback on the alignment and their concerns and comments. One of those landowners is an Amish landowner who owns the cornfield next to the church. And the committee decided that a combined use of the buggies and horses with pedestrians and bicycles was probably a conflict of interest. And we did not hear anything from the Amish community requesting a buggy route.
So how does he get access to his fields then, unless they're planning on getting rid of them?
Yeah, so he would just need to have a parallel tractor lane to the trail adjacent to it. And, but there would be no use for buggies or horses. And that was the decision. I think I got that right, Mark. I think the committee had decided that would just be a conflicting use.
So we'd have to take some of his land, I'm assuming?
So, the portion that's owned by Chester County is owned by Chester County, and then from that point east, the entire corridor is on private land. And so that's where Honey Brook Township will need to either secure a lease agreement or a trail easement from each landowner who's affected to allow public access on that strip of land.
So you're saying the farmer that's next to the trail, at the end of the church, you have to get an easement from him even though he doesn't own that trail?
Oh, so for portions east of the parcel owned by Chester County, he owns portions east of that.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, yeah.
Thank you.
All right, I'll make the motion to accept.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye. Thank you, Sean.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sheila.
Thank you. Yes.
And Sheila had said that she will be in the audience if anybody would like to talk to her outside of her little talk now.
We'll move on to the new business. Do you want a motion to approve or not to pay the all invoices carried by the treasurer?
I'll make it.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Next is a zoning hearing variance application, number 2022-5, Raymond and Mary Ann Diamond, 250 Township Line Road, parcel 22-2-9.
Yes. Good evening. Everybody hear me? I just want to get the map up close enough that they can see it. The diamond.
Let's anyway, stand up there.
I apologize, I don't know the manager or the supervisor, but I know your solicitor and your engineer. I'm not sure if that's good or bad. Now we know each other. I've been working in the engineering business for well over 40 years.
a triangular shaped 7.8 acre property as referenced on Township Wine Road. It's been a triangular shaped property since at least 1963. By the deed description that was included in the 1963 deed, I'm going to bet it goes back a lot farther than that. I didn't trace it back, so I'm not going to speculate. But we mentioned the Mayflower in it somewhere. Your ordinance in the Resource Conservation District requires 5 acre lots. Okay, well, naturally, without going any further, 7.5 doesn't divide into 2 when you divide it by 5. But your ordinance goes on further to say that it needs 60,000 square feet usable. We exceed that, the small, well, the lots are both 3.5 acres. One has a usable area of 101,000 square feet more or less, and the other one I wrote it down here. Pardon me. I'm old, God, have my glasses. I don't believe it's like the American Express card, I don't think about it. The other one has 132,000 square feet of usable area, more than double what's required. We meet the front yard setback, we meet the side yard setbacks, we meet the rear yard setbacks. The only thing we don't meet is the 5 acres. Now, your ordinance also has a conservation option, which allows a 2 acre lot. And Mike's here, not Jennifer, but at the planning commission, Jennifer agreed with me. I spent a year trying to meet the conservation option. But because of this unique configuration of basically a flat triangle, I couldn't do it. I thought I had it, and then she found one point that we missed. She did a very thorough review. I would commend your engineers on their thoroughness. Nothing stood by them. Not that I tried to slip anything by, don't take that too far. So we were before the planning commission at their last meeting, looking for more or less a recommendation to support our variance request to the zoning hearing board, which most likely will be May the 16th after discussing it with the zoning hearing board solicitor yesterday. We have to give
An extension.
about a 7-day extension, and we have no problem giving another 7 days. I mean, you already have so many meetings, why make more? So what I'm looking for tonight is to answer any questions and to see if we can get some support from the board of supervisors before we get the zoning hearing board.
But I think we discussed this in the workshop.
Exactly, John. We had talked about this at the workshop, if you remember last week. The planning commission did offer a recommendation of support on the variance at the planning commission meeting. So you would do the same, you would either offer a recommendation of support, no opposition, or opposition to the application.
Sure.
And it's pretty straightforward, as
It is.
all I've just outlined.
No, I think we covered it, so,
Can I just,
Yeah,
can you
you
just
do.
turn that so I can just see it?
With pleasure.
everyone's
I'll give it to you if you really want.
Yeah.
We're not 100% certain if the road if portion of Township Wine Road that fronts on the property is Township Road or not.
Yeah.
But certainly we'll offer enough right away that it could become part of the Township Road, if you will not.
Some of those older records are hard to,
If you can even find them.
right.
Any other questions?
I think I'm good on this. I'll make the, is it a motion to accept it? Oh, here, motion to support. I'll make a motion to support.
I'll second the motion to support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Have a good evening.
Next item is a motion to adopt or not adopt resolution 2022-12 for your 2022 budget reallocation.
Yes, we spoke about this, actually, since I started with the ARPA funds, and the final rule came out in February, and all of the agencies that kind of assist local municipalities on best practices recommended using the totality of our ARPA funds to pay for general services, as every municipality can claim a standard $10 million deduction. With the board agreeing to use that to pay essentially our general funds accounts, that has left us some surplus funds that have been unallocated. So the request before you just asks to move some money to some additional items, kind of what we spoke about. I'll go over that briefly. The first one is the ScanTech document conversion, which is actually going to be the next agenda item. Essentially, moving all the records we've had since the beginning of Honey Brook Township onto an online platform, which would allow us to archive that forever. It makes it easily available to our citizenship. We can post it on our website. It's a lot more accessible. And the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania does now currently allow us to do that. The bulk of that cost is the initial conversion. They would move all those records into an online platform. We actually have that software in-house currently, so we would just move from an in-house platform to a cloud-based, which would just be more secure. The second one is putting the fobs in for the key system. That's already been done. Moving our cellular monitoring system. Currently, we use some landlines, so for our fire and police alarms. When it rains, the telephone lines go down. Cellular networks are cheaper. We don't have to pay $400 a month for landlines. So that $10,000 for a Zoom room, essentially upgrading this so we can actually have a screen, have Zoom rooms more applicable, be able to put information to Sheila, and print it out today up on the screens and allow just better citizen engagement if they want to do it virtually. It's just modernizing and it's a simple solution. There's a purchase in there for our board software. Essentially, we're going to go digital with our board packet, so instead of printing out 300 pages, which essentially get used for 14 days and recycled, we would remove all of that, and that would go in line with our ScanTech online document storage. So the supervisors will be provided with an iPad, which will have a software solution on there for your board packets and your township emails on there. So this way, you only have to show up with your iPad, and no paper, email, or back and forths would be occurring. We're asking that we donate $120,000 to the Elverson Honey Brook area EMS. They are struggling because of COVID and the hospital closures. So I'm asking that we set aside that money for this year, and as they need, make requests that the Board of Supervisors agree with, we can release those funds. Asking $250,000 be put into our stormwater management projects that Texticon has identified, which would just reduce flooding and make our roads safer to travel on, especially in inclement weather. Some wage salaries to bring up our township administrative staff, not inclusive of me, just two standard salaries for their assistant positions as it relates to neighboring jurisdictions. And finally, an increase of a donation to the Honey Brook Food Pantry. I did hear, and thank you whoever donated some food into the green bin outside. $84,000 over 24 months, and that they asked that they get a $3,500 a month check written to them, essentially allowing them to, for the next 2 years, 24 months out, have an additional known revenue source that will help them provide to the community. So for this year, that would be $24,000, but a total of $84,000 a year. So again, this is just putting those monies into those line items, because as it currently stood in the beginning of the year, we did not know what to do with our funds. And just good budgeting practice is to show that we are not overexpending for things that we did not expect to spend on this year. However, until ARPA came out with the final rule in February of this year, we didn't know where we should lay those additional funds, and I think these fund expenditures would benefit the community, the township, and society in general, and that I ask that you make a motion and so approve.
As far as what we're doing here, for instance, we have Gary here from the Planning Commission, so there's a sketch and stuff that's being proposed. He can go to a cloud-based solution, take a look at that sketch in advance of the meeting.
Correct. So every single board, now we have Board of Supervisors, Planning Commissions, Land Preservation. Currently, when a plan comes in, they have to submit several dozen large format files. They will now submit them digitally, and every single board member will have a login into our portal, which is essentially another front side website that's available to the public. When they log in, their board packets will automatically get notified when it's ready, and then all of the documents, as you'll see here, in our agenda, digitally will have the PDF form right there, so as you go through with your iPad, or if the members of commissions want to buy them, they can download this app and they can just click on it here. And additionally, with our Zoom room and our screen here, they'll be able to throw up those large size plans so they're not wasting any resources. They can look at them at their own benefit. And obviously, if anybody requests or needs a physical copy, Technicon does have an architectural size printer. It can obviously print out any type of documents requested.
We have a couple questions. I just want to ask, so in the event of, some of these engineering firms, they can send us a PDF and all that, we're scanning it. But, you have someone from the Amish community, they do not have that access.
So when they come in with their permits and they hand draw them, what we do is we actually will now scan it into our archival digitized format, right? So currently, we do a whole bunch of handwork, we make copies, we shove copies everywhere. If a PlanSec member comes in with a plan, we will scan it into our system for them. We will stamp it along with their check. They get it as their approved proof of payment and receipt that we've received it, and then we will put it into that digitized PDFA form, and then it will still go into the board packets.
For larger projects like stormwater, there are engineers that work with the PlanSec community on a regular basis, so they will often apply on their behalf with digital format plans.
In Chester County, it's more and more requiring us to provide them with digital copies of certain plans, so we can't even take out those copies anymore.
One of the questions, Gary, did we ever resolve that, the standard for those drawings, the scale and things like that? There was times when it was pretty much like a drawing on a napkin.
We can scan them.
Well, yeah, but did we ever resolve that as far as what's acceptable for some of those drawings? I know that was a point of contention a few years back.
Much better. It's really nice on it.
Yeah.
It kind of
We have control issues for a long time.
Yeah.
And so again, this is one of these systems where Technicon have access to the planning commission, and a lot of times they assist us with building the agendas. So a lot of times these drawings do come back from Technicon. So they will actually have the ability to log in on their end and upload it, so it's really reducing the amount of time we spend, because board packet week for 2 weeks, every time I ask Chris to do anything other than board packet stuff, I get a new book. So it'll actually just make it so much easier to do. And all those agendas, once they get approved, they automatically just open up onto the township portal website, so any community member can look at that. And I know we spoke about this at the workshop. Part of this software for the board program is any citizen can sign up for notifications for board meetings or when agendas get released or meeting minutes. And you will get a link emailed to you with a link that you can click on that will take you right to that agenda. You can save it, you can print it, you can see the associated documents if they're public.
Yeah, so then in line with what we're doing, notification of the meetings and stuff will sign up to the county system.
So county has one,
So-
but again, the board members here, as we release our packets, and again, members of the public can sign up for notifications as well, as we publish any of our meeting minutes or agendas, they'll go out to anybody who signed up. And if you are a board member, you'll get the confidential section. If you are a member of the community, you'll get the version that is not confidential. Automatically, it separates it. There's no work. It's a single button, and it happens immediate. So there's no late email exchanges.
Okay, Karen, any questions?
Would you be willing to offer classes to some of us that are like technology impaired?
I will talk to anybody after the meeting, so there's no open forum afterwards. And again, as always, I'm available afterwards, so we can answer any of those questions after we move through the agenda.
And secondly, I grow a large vegetable garden each year, and I donate a lot of the fresh vegetables
To the food bank.
to the food bank.
Okay,
So,
thank you for that. We can get to the questions as long as it'll be after the agenda, unfortunately. We've had our public comment before, but I'll be more than happy to answer any questions afterwards.
Okay, so
Yep.
do I motion to adopt or not adopt the resolution on the budget allocation?
I'll make a motion for that.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Next is Resolution 2022-9, authorizing participation in the Pennsylvania Electronic Government Consortium Local Government Legacy Data Scanning and Digitization Program.
That's a.
Are you for real?
Do I hear a motion?
So essentially, that PA Futures, essentially, they are trying to get local governments to put their documents in a cloud-based solution. Since you just voted on doing that, it's a non-binding resolution, so I was one of the, it was the easiest meeting I've ever gone to. It's a done, and done. So again, it does give support to PA Futures, which is a nonprofit looking to actually make the ability for the community to be able to search records openly, easily done, and I think what we've just taken steps prior will help us do that, so I'd ask that we accept that.
And this would be a follow-up, Tracy, for the Western Chester County COG. Just once we adopt this, they probably would like to see that. So I'll make the motion to adopt.
I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Next is Resolution 2022-10, supporting the PA Commission for the United States Semi-Quincentennial.
Again, that's just a PSAT recommendation, essentially the state association that deals with second-class municipalities. They think we should just agree to join in the celebration. So it's a non-binding resolution just saying that we support this motion, and I ask that you approve it.
Do I hear a motion? I'll make the motion to support.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Next is Resolution 2022-11, supporting a renewable energy future.
So this is another non-binding resolution. It's just essentially showing support that eventually our communities in the Commonwealth and throughout the country are going to have more and more capabilities to utilize renewable energy. And this is a non-binding resolution that says we will start making slow steps. And as you'll see later, or actually as you voted, one of the money allocation is to put some electric vehicle chargers out here because there is a state rebate program, so we're already taking steps to do that.
Do I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion to adopt.
I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Next is a motion to approve or not approve the following financial security releases recommended by Technicon. Penn Lynn Chestnut LP, stages 2 and 3, which is Chestnut Ridge, parcel 22-8-52, for a partial release in the amount of $206,125 for site improvements, and for Alvin Byler, Beaver Dam Road, parcel 22-9-5.28, for a partial release in the amount of $10,529.34, also for site improvements. Do I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Next is a motion to authorize, or not authorize, the township manager to enter into a contract with Scantech for document storage solutions.
So I've already covered this previously, but that first motion was just to move the money to the line item. This is a request to actually enter into a contract with Scantech. Scantech is part of Pennsylvania CoStars, and that's part of a purchasing agreement where this vendor agrees to negotiate the price with the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania itself, and therefore offer a discounted best bid rate to any municipality that wishes to do that. So it covers all the bidding requirements that we have to do when bids are over a certain fund. So this in fact is a CoStar vendor, and we did get CoStar pricing. Scantech has been in the business for 5 decades. They offer the digitizing of the records. They came out and spent the afternoon with Christy and I delved through all of the records and gave us a pretty good quote on what they believe that price would be. This process will take several months because they're scanning over 750,000 individual documents into the system. What's good about this is that they're going to do it piecemeal. They'll do the resolutions first, and then they'll work on large formats, items that we don't use more frequently. But part of the agreement is that every single day we can make a request for 5 documents that they currently have that we might need for some day-to-day operation at no cost. And as they scan in at the end of the week, those documents are immediately available to us. We already use the software platform, Laserfish, and we did get another quote through the company that does provide our current IT. And after speaking with both parties, they both agreed that Scantech with the Laserfish storage solution, which we currently use, is going to be the best. Of course.
What happens to the original document?
So part of that is because documents are now are permitted to be stored online. It's called PDF-A format. The A means archival. So that is considered a physical copy of that document. So part of this agreement is Scantech will upload OCR, essentially make everything text searchable, scan, verify that all of those scans are in fact true and correct and are where they're supposed to be, and then they're going to hold on to those documents, provide us proof, and once we sign off that we agree that everything is where it's supposed to be, they will then physically do the destruction on site securely and dispose of those. Additionally, part of this agreement is part of the Retention Act is we have to keep certain records forever, 7 years, 5 years, and we can destroy them based upon an annual resolution. So part of this is as they're going through these documents, they're going to pull aside and not scan anything that could be legally destroyed, notify us, and we're going to work with our solicitor to get a resolution in front of the board that permits us to destroy records that fall outside of the Retention Act. They'll be spelled out clearly, and every year we'll update that resolution. But by having these records in the cloud, we keep, I think, financial records for 7 years. Once a year, we can just make this resolution and then just be deleting a virtual file versus physically paying someone to come in and shred. So they take care of all that. They have a secure document storage facility that's under security. We are welcome to go and visit and see their operation. So they take care of all the destruction. The only thing we have to do is get rid of 35 filing cabinets. That'll be empty because I'm not going to let them fill up. And again, so they do day backwards, correct? So day forward is anything once they take it, they will train our office to scan in, to be able to file them digitally, so we will not be refilling any drawers with any paperwork. The only paper that's going to remain here is about 4 filing cabinets that I have as the manager that I have to keep with certain secure records and things that are just useful day to day, but not legally retention quality, but I use just to do whatever I'm doing month to month. So they'll take care of all the physical destruction. So it's a large one-time cost, but the yearly cost is actually close to almost what we're paying currently for our in-house system versus it going into the cloud base. So big initial cost, we're talking maybe $200 or $300 a year to have a cloud-based solution that we currently pay for our software-based solution that's only on our server.
That means you have more room in that administrative office.
I can actually
Reducing
put my office in there, yeah. So currently, 2 of my walls are filing cabinets.
Yep.
So I might actually see a physical wall there one day.
Okay.
Thank you.
Do I hear a motion to authorize?
I make a motion to authorize.
I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Next is a motion to approve or not approve a $3,500 per month donation to the Honey Brook Food Pantry for a total of $84,000 over 24 months, starting in May of 2022.
Again, I already spoke about this with the earlier resolution. I think helping our community long-term is a easy decision to make, and I think that you should vote on this with confidence.
I'll make the motion to approve.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Let's see, motion to waive or not waive the fee for the Twin Valley Little League
sheds up there. Some are falling into disrepair. While it is on township property, it is theirs, so they are required to file a shed removal fee. That is $139.50. I will say the Twin Valley Little League is a nonprofit, and, after many, many years, we actually, over the last month or two, signed an actual financial, agreement for their use of it, so, I think it's a good wave. The township's willing to help, break down that shed and kind of help the Little League make the park look nicer for us and make it a little bit safer for all the kids using the park, so I'd ask you to, approve it.
I'll make a motion to waive the fee.
I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Is there any other new business?
Yeah, I'd like to bring up, we're going to start a meeting for the veteran ceremony, November. What we do is we meet usually on a Sunday. It's going to be at Tel High. We're going to turn it back to Tel High. It's a joint effort with Honey Brook Borough. 2-3 years ago, last time we met there, I think there's over 250 people attending. So quite a difference from when we used to be here. We're lucky to get 5 or 6 people to show up. We will have Tim Perra from Tel High who will organize the meeting. I'll represent the township. Anyone else is welcome to step up and help us with the ceremony. It's nothing overly formal. It's just really a moment for remembrance. We'll just take a time to pause and say thank you on Veterans Day. Depending on the Eagles' schedule and Sunday, that might be a problem, but we usually work that out. So that's starting up now. It'll give us enough time to prepare for November.
And I will just kind of add, you'll see our veterans roll list here. Christie is in the works to actually get more of those boards up with the names spread out more clearly. And then we're just discussing whether we want to keep it here or actually mount it into the vestibule somewhere. Because our hope is to have 3 or 4 and update them every few years. And then I told Christy to reach out to someone that is on the Veterans Honor Roll. So when we elect to stop using this one, maybe we can give that to a family or someone who's on the list, and maybe they can pursue that. And,
We also add another branch to the service.
the Space Force. Yes.
Yes.
So that is ongoing.
Any veterans from the Space Force?
Not yet. There will be some.
Yes.
So this group work with Christy and I will make sure it's up on the website.
Thank you.
As we can.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, old business, continuation of discussion regarding the Brandywine and General Hospital closings.
So yeah, initially, I know a couple months ago, they closed. There was hopes that there was going to be an injunction. The injunction was filed. It was granted. The purchasers had to put up a $1 million bond, which they did not do. Eventually, they removed their injunction. So the situation reports that come out of Chester County Department of Emergency Services, they kind of slowed down. The Chester County Commissioners did express optimism that they would reopen eventually. To further complicate matters, there was an announcement a couple weeks ago about scaling back the services at the Coatesville Veterans Affairs Center. But that's not anything immediate. And again, they were looking at doing that because they were talking about building a more modern facility in the compression area. The Coatesville VA Center, though, is one of the rare centers in the area that actually has housing for mental health and addiction recovery. So they actually are like a stepping program. So the concern is that they might lose that. And we've already lost 2 hospitals in this part of the county. Losing a veterans hospital would be another blow and really strain our resources. So we're still just waiting to see what's going to happen with that. Thank you.
Open forum on any other matters, if anybody has any other comments.
So you'll have 3 minutes to speak. If you state your name and where you live, and then you may have 3 minutes.
Hi, my name is Matt Long. I live at 3678 Horseshoe Pike. Township resident, also a member of Honey Brook Speedway, which I understand developers have been purchasing. We are a nonprofit. Kids from 5 years old to 16 race there. It's been there some 40 years. It's my understanding that the developer doesn't want that parcel of land. I'm talking about maybe donating it to the township. If we could keep the track there somehow with an agreement, I don't know what's in the plans or in the works, but that's what we're thinking. I mean, we got local kids that race there, we got kids from all over come to race there. I mean, the end of the month, we'll have kids from upper New York, Connecticut, all over Northeast come to race there. So like, consideration on maybe saving, a sport that not all kids can play, physical sports, whether it's baseball, soccer, whatever, so.
I think that's an item for rec and parks. I think it should be considered whenever that question comes up about that space, if we should proceed with parks.
So currently, it's in front of the zoning hearing board, part of it, so it is not even in land development at this point.
Correct.
But the Park and Rec does meet April 21st, and I will actually say they're meeting at 7 o'clock. But prior to that, a bunch of the board and committee members are going to be meeting at James Humble Park. There is a upgrades grant / program. They're looking at upgrading in phases. We're all going to walk that with the landscape architect at 6 p.m. if any of the members of the public would like to meet us there. It's not really a back and forth. It's just, kind of talking over that. And I would say for you, sir, it would probably be beneficial for you then to show up to the Park and Rec meeting that evening at 7 o'clock next Thursday, April 1st, and maybe start that conversation with the steering committee for the board as it relates to recreation within the township. And if you need anything, as the manager, my card's on the door. I'll talk to you afterwards. Reach out to me. I'd love to talk.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I grew up watching you guys race.
Thank you. That's a big race at the end of the month, so.
So I have two questions. Can you guys explain in a little more detail as to why, when the D.R. Horton proposed townhome special exception was put before the board, that you guys voted no confidence? Can you explain that decision?
Well, we didn't
No
vote
position, I
no position, yes. So the recommendation from the planning commission came before us, and then during the discussion and the presentation to, I'm speaking for the board, if you want to get. So we found that there was some ambiguity or some areas that we weren't still questions about, so that's why we said we're not taking a position on that, so not making a recommendation, say no or yes. So that's where I made that motion.
Any of the other supervisors keep a comment?
I think John is, pretty clear. I mean, we didn't take a position to support or against, we just left it to the zoning hearing board to look at what was before them.
Some of the items were not strong enough to support. Some of the items were questionable, where we couldn't say no to it. We didn't have all the information, but that's where I just felt that not confident to say I support it or to outright reject it, so we didn't take the position on, and that's an option we have.
Would it have been maybe another alternative to maybe consider asking them to address those concerns and those questions that you had and then come back? Because it just kind of seems like it's, pushing it along to the responsibility of the next person down the line.
That's, there's a judicial question before, that's the zoning board, and that went to the appropriate committee. And, we make the legislative and executive decisions, but when it comes to making those rulings on zoning matters, we have to give it to the zoning board to make those decisions. First step, of course, you have a representative from the planning commission. They do the job, they make a recommendation to us based on what they've reviewed. And it was a position to accept, or I don't recall. I think the representative support. Yeah. Right.
Interesting. The other question I have is, I think we're all noticing, especially for elections, for hearings, whatever, we're running out of parking at this place. And as you guys are supporting more and more growth coming in here, it's going to become more and more of an issue. I mean, people are kind of, I'll be honest with you, for the last presidential election, I saw little old ladies pushing their walkers down this road, which was extremely hazardous, and it was freezing cold that day. So, I mean, what are your plans? I know you guys have gotten some money, some funds coming in. Have you guys thought about, what you're going to do with accessibility to this location?
That question came up in 2004. And what we had at Tel High, a similar situation to what you faced in this building when they combined the two precincts. We had people at Tel High being wheeled out into the parking lot to get on the line. So I was a committee person at the time, and I approached the election judge and I said, could we ask to put those people in the wheelchairs, the handicap, to the front of the line? And then we asked the people voting, they said, sure, go ahead, we don't mind, So at that point, I did reach out to Chester County Voter Services with the idea that we may need a third precinct, and that third precinct would be west of Route 10. And you would potentially use either the school, Honey Brook Elementary Center, or the Lions Club as a voting center. The voting numbers dropped considerably after the 2004 election. 2004, everybody came out to vote, But then it wasn't until the recent elections in 2016 and 2020 that now we're starting to look at it again and saying, maybe it's time we step up again. But we'd have to go through, I believe, the Democrat Party, the Republican Party, and Voter Services, and go through that process. But yeah, as far as this location, what other facility do we have in precinct 300?
I mean, just can you expand the parking lot? That's my question. I mean, it's not like the building itself isn't big enough, it's huge, but, the parking lot only accommodates, 30 cars? It's not much.
Yeah. Based on what we looked at in 2007, I think there's just so much parking, impervious coverage. I think was because this is a 2-acre lot. Gary, are you up on that one? Sorry, I'm deferring to you, putting you on the spot there.
We're about max build out for this fall.
Yeah.
So we have to meet, we still have to meet code requirements for the municipal building.
You can file for a special exception. Come on.
Can you apply for a variance?
Apply for the amendment.
Your point is well taken, and I think that there is a need to start looking at maybe a third precinct in Honey Brook Township.
But the parking was bad because Tel High wasn't being used for voting.
Because of COVID,
Because
correct?
of COVID.
You're looking at the township expanding considerably right now, so that's a reality you're going to have
But
to
Mrs. Schultz's point is that if you all of a sudden get 100 voters show up at one time, when they're going to be parking down the street, and that's been a problem at Tel High as well. That especially around 5 o'clock, people getting off of work, now they're coming to vote, and it's like from noon time to 3 o'clock in the afternoon, it's like 1 or 2 people come to vote, and then all of a sudden, bang, everybody comes around the dinner hour, or they're standing up there at 7 o'clock in the morning waiting to come in to vote. Gene, I think your husband knows very well because he was the election judge. He can tell you all about that. I have a question.
2 questions. One, real quick, regarding the veteran celebrations.
Yes.
Other little communities around have little flags with their pictures on it and their name.
Yep.
Is Honey Brook doing that as well?
Well, we don't have anything.
That's
Tough
being
on both.
spearheaded by the borough, but that's because we
Yeah.
don't have.
We don't have anywhere to put it.
Yeah.
We don't have lights to post it.
We have the one light at South Cordell, but
Yeah.
and who would be the one person?
To give you background on that.
We can flip it every day.
Yeah. But if Garrett, to give you background on that, so what happened was Honey Brook Borough, there's a veteran by the name of Rich Florio. So he was representing the borough, and he, going through the Council of Government, he got in touch with AdClan. AdClan, if you drive through there, they have the banners. So they put him in touch with how to go about that. That's how we got the banners in the borough. Yeah.
I just think, it should be, instead of saying borough township, it just should be one community. Anyway,
Go ask the borough that.
You go up there on the board there, you see that's one of the objectives that they will bring.
secondly, and I know what the answer's gonna be, but let me just say it anyway. With the inflation and the prices of food and gasoline, people are having difficult times feeding their families and are relying on things. You have a development going in on good agricultural land. Can't we get some of that land and use it to plant for food, for the food pantry?
Well, the point I'm making is that one meeting where I said, the world population is at 7 billion. By mid-century, it's going to be something like 9 to 10 billion people on the planet. Already, you've got something like 20% of the people on this planet are hungry, and it's only going to get worse. And
it's getting worse. I'm sorry, not to interrupt, but it's getting worse because you're building more and more homes and townhouses and this and that. You're taking all the good agricultural land to grow corn, grow wheat, grow tomatoes, grow cabbage, lettuce. You name it, you can grow all that stuff.
And we're not that we're not aware. We did start a raised garden there, and the parks, they were responsible for that for many years, providing all that growth was sent to the food pantry. But we preserve 40%.
Yeah, we get reports about how much
Exactly.
But we can,
But that's on small,
I'm talking acres.
Yes, well.
And then you can, support the community with all this essential food that they're gonna need.
Well,
we don't need houses or townhouses or building I'm tired of looking at the damn things, to be honest with you.
Next month.
I would rather see, food, cows making milk, cheese, goats, you got, let's be creative and
next
go forward.
Next month at the workshop, I'll do a presentation on the land preservation program, and then you'll understand what it takes to get that land into a conservation easement. And Brandywine Conservancy has partnered with us over the years. They've contributed money to support us. There's times when our contribution would have been at 50%, but by them going out to these other organizations have reduced our purchase down to 25%, which allows us to go out and get additional farmland. But it's up to the farmer to say, I want to do this. And Sheila has a representative, John Goodall, has been doing that for years, meeting with all the farmers. So we're doing our part here in Honey Brook Township. But to your point, for the region, yes, it's very serious. And yeah.
So do you recommend going to Land Preservation Committee and the Planning Commission to go to them about, developments and preserving land and, besides coming to the state, the board here and the zoning board, I would like to know more about what's going on in the community.
Yeah.
So what would you recommend?
Show up at every board.
I work 16 hours a day. I can't come every day.
Well, this shows brought up a good point. Go ahead.
Yeah.
I work 7 A to 7 P. 7 P to 7 A.
Yeah, we all work too.
This show's brought up a good point. There's 3 minutes there. But it brought out a point about we will be looking at the zoning again in the next round. It's a 10-year cycle, just like the land preservation plan. Yeah, so that's the time when your voice will be needed. Okay.
Anyone else like to speak?
Paul Hayden, 124 Grayson Road. So I'm sorry, I came late to the party. I was away for a while. You guys voted no contest? What on the?
No position.
No position. Now what was the actual no position on? What did they present on the variance?
No, on the special exception for the townhomes on
Correct.
2351 Chestnut.
Okay, so they came to you first.
Well, this board is not the deciding board on that application. The zoning hearing board is the deciding board.
Well, who do
They have all the approval to say yes or say no. The only thing this board could do would be to give a comment to the zoning hearing board about whether this board thought it was good, bad, or no comment. And so that's the relationship of this board to the zoning hearing board on the question of whether that special exception should be approved or not.
So you made that ruling on the chapter of the zoning that states it's the Honey Brook Township subdivision and land development ordinance?
No,
Under that?
No.
no,
So
it's
when does it
under,
go, when does it go there?
If
after the hearing has been, decision has been rendered.
If
So once there's a verdict on, once the zoning board gives its verdict, if it's no problem, see, like, if it's yes, then it goes back to you.
Yeah, it goes to the planning commission, and there will be, and that is about the technical requirements of the subdivision and land development ordinance. The special exception is under the zoning ordinance. So that issue has to be resolved first by the zoning hearing board before they have the right to go to the planning commission with a plan under the subdivision and land development.
So but they come to you and then you refer to the planning commission.
Well, the planning commission, the plan is submitted to the township, and the planning commission does the review of the plan first and makes recommendations to the board of supervisors.
Because in the scope of jurisdiction, it says, from and after the effective date, the board of supervisors shall have the authority to regulate subdivision and land development within the township.
As to the subdivision and land development planning ordinance, the township board of supervisors is the deciding body for those regulations. Planning commission recommends action to the board of supervisor under that subdivision and land development ordinance.
And that's all after zoning.
After zoning. They don't have the right to have a plan approval if they don't get their zoning approval.
So then what, again, then going back to the original question, what did you rule on no position? What did the board rule on no position? Why did they even have to come to you first, is my question, I guess.
They don't have to, actually.
Yeah,
It
it's-
just, that's how.
So at
it's
first,
done.
they came to you to ask you what your position was,
The
but you had no idea what they were even planning at that point.
Well, this board has the discretion to provide comments to the zoning hearing board. But it is not this board's authority to decide the zoning. It is only the zoning hearing board that can decide the zoning when it's a special exception.
So when they came to you first, out of courtesy, you couldn't review what your purpose is to review if it came back to you? You couldn't do that first before even sending it to zoning?
I'm not sure what you're asking
Well,
exactly.
I mean, all these, there's, the purpose of this chapter, and it's 1A, B, all the way to M, there's conditions, sort of like the special exception has conditions that the zoning board.
You're talking saldo.
I'm sorry?
You're talking about saldo.
I believe so.
Okay, so saldo comes after variance, after zoning.
And the plans that would be submitted to the zoning hearing board do not comply with the SALDO, meaning they don't have all the engineering that is necessary to review them under the subdivision and land development ordinance.
Good answer. So if they don't have all that information, how do they render a decision?
Because they're not deciding those issues at the zoning hearing board.
But that's that's their criteria for accepting or denying, are those issues.
What the zoning hearing board is looking at are the conditions of the zoning ordinance, which would be as to whether or not the use meets the ordinance, and as to whether or not the criteria in the zoning ordinance are satisfied, which would be things like the density, the setbacks.
Traffic.
Potentially, yes.
Then why don't they, I guess that's my question is, it seems like the zoning board has to rule on things that do not get done until after their ruling.
They are different questions under different regulations, and the zoning hearing board decision is only on those criteria that are in the zoning ordinance. They don't have legal authority to even open the zoning regulations and look at them. That's not within their authority. I don't know, did I say what I meant to say was the cell? Yeah, I'm sorry. What I meant to say was the zoning hearing board doesn't have the right to look at the SALDO regulations to make a decision about zoning qualification.
I agree to disagree. If you read the 10 items that need to be passed for them to accept the special ordinance, they're all specific items. One of them is traffic.
Okay, well, that is for the zoning hearing board to decide, and you have every right to go to the zoning hearing and to question whether or not the application to the zoning hearing board meets the qualifications under the zoning ordinance.
Okay, so that's what I meant. I was a little late to the party. So this stuff comes after. The Pennsylvania Constitution, all that stuff comes afterwards.
And you're 3 minutes are up.
I'm sorry?
Your 3 minutes are up.
Okay. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I forgot I had 3 minutes. I apologize. You should have waved a flag. Thank you.
Any other comments?
It still doesn't make any sense.
Say your name and where you live right now.
Renee, again, 43 Foxy Road. At one of the last meetings for the zoning board, the attorney, they had then approved or proposed that they would give the township 31 acres. And they had made mention that the Honey Brook Township had given a recommendation where that initial park should have been. Was that during the planning, or was that?
That was during the planning commission.
So the planning commission suggested?
No, but the comment was they gave 2 potential locations, I was at the meeting,
Right.
of where the planning commission would prefer a park further into the development or closer to, not the 31 acres, but like just a township park. Just the general location. My understanding from the comments is that the planning commission believed that it would be safer to have it closer to the road because there would be more traffic, yet more eyes on a park, and less apt to have nefarious activities there.
So if and when it is approved by the zoning board, could that future park be put back towards the Rockville Mennonite Church?
Everything's up for discussion now. We're not there yet.
Okay, just checking. And that was the land, that was at the planning commission for the land?
They showed something. That doesn't mean that we take it or we agree to it in the process. That's just what they believe is a rough draft of what they would like to see. It's a negotiation and going through South Plan Division.
And to the point that when you were challenged on your expertise and all that, I mean, some of those questions may have been turned to the solicitor and just say, you know, I'm just here to make the offer some information. You know, I think that some of those comments and stuff that were directed to you, you know, you handled them very well. Right? But turn to the solicitor and say, you know, this is not appropriate for me. This is not, you know, something that they should be digging at that point. Okay?
Anybody else like to make a comment?
Motion to adjourn.
So make that?
I'll make the motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye.
Thank you everyone for joining tonight.
Good night, thank you.
My head wasn't in your way, was it, the whole time? No. You didn't get the glare off there?
No glare.